on Ben's grave.
Sorry, you guys, I
this-
forgot I promised to record the meeting, so I missed the first part, but just to let you guys all know I'm recording. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
So this lone faded rose was the only thing on Ben's grave. And actually, Sting wrote a song about Ben called Fragile many years later. So this was in Matagalpa. I wanted to be sure to visit his grave. And if you want, I can go through a couple of the images. The image next to that, this was an old foxhole.
Kevin, can you go through? Can you bring them up into a slideshow?
Sure. Is this better?
Because we can only, there we go. Yeah, and maybe even walk us through. Walk us through the sequencing a little bit. That would be awesome. I love, by the way, that you're talking about your knowledge of this topic, and I know you have a good background for that. You are an awesome history buff. So I love I think it's great that I'm just saying I love that you're talking about how you learned about this situation and it informed your photography. So thank you. But anyway, go ahead.
Thanks. Okay. Well, I'll just jump through a couple images here with a little bit of story behind it, and also how that story fueled my intention regarding the photograph. This individual here was working with the Sandinistas, and he was part of this unit. That was kind of the secret police that would go seek out suspected collaborators. And some of the things he told me was they would storm houses at night and grab people, things like that. So when I made this portrait, he now runs a drug rehab facility in the city of Hinatega. And I spent a couple days with him. And the one thing I really wanted to do was kind of create something that acknowledged that past. So I stuck him deep in shadow against this wall. And I just wanted his hand to subtly emerge out of the shadow. Now, whether that, now that you have that story, you might understand the photograph a little bit better, but I'm constantly trying to incorporate or using things that I've learned from my discussion with them to kind of push the photo, to incorporate that into it and create that energy in it. Let me see here, there's another one I can show you. This image here, I was talking a little bit before about the process of taking photos and shooting photos. This was a man who had lost his vision from a hand grenade. And I interviewed him, and he was telling me the story about how it blew him back and knocked him onto the ground, and why he took up arms against the Sandinistas. And as we were taking his photo, he said, if individuals really want to see, what happened in this situation, he took off his glasses and he said, you should take a photo right now like this. And I didn't want to ask him to do that. So, this was a photograph that he gave me.
You talk a lot about, one of the things I noticed, you talk about intention, and I think that shows up in that photo, that your intention, your relationship is a key part of these photos. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I really believe that for this body of work, it was really a back and forth. As an outsider coming into these communities, it might be a psychological exercise that I was doing at the time, but I really was focusing on earning photographs and having people give those to me, and that's through establishing trust, right? And it takes time, and I had the ability to really invest that time with these individuals. This was a guy here, he was a former Sandinista, and I stayed in the village with him for a while, and I'd heard a lot about him, and he'd done some really horrible things. And he would always put on a face, he was very kind to me, but I'd known what he had done. So I wanted to kind of get something out of him. So I took him into the kitchen where the stove was going, and it was hot. I closed the windows, and on the back of my Hasselblad, there's a film slide, and if you have it in, the camera won't fire, it'll jam. So I wanted to make him uncomfortable. So I left the slide in, And 3 or 4 times I would get him ready and I would hit it and the camera wouldn't fire. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And it keeps getting hotter and hotter in the room. So I could tell he was becoming annoyed at me. So finally, I did it again. It jammed. It didn't fire. And he gave me this look. And right when he did it, I cocked it. I pulled out the slide and I took this photo.
Oh,
So I was able to get this sinister glare out of him where he was angry at me. And it was the first time I'd seen that emerge from him. So now with these stories about him and what he'd done, I was able to kind of place this on that text. These are old hand grenades that you still find in the jungle everywhere. A lot of the Contras after the peace believed that when UN observers would leave, the Sandinistas would come in and keep fighting. Almost all of them have AK-47s that they buried in their yards. These are orders from the Contra commanders that came down from the CIA that were basically instructing them how to properly interrogate people, things like that. This is a prison cell. It's maybe about 8 feet by 8 feet, but they would place up to like 40 people in this one room. And it was so small that people had to take their turns crawling up that wall on the right until their legs would give out, and then the next group of people would crawl up. Let's see here. Oh, Claymore mines. I would go into villages and people would know why I was there, and kids would come to my hut in the morning and hand me these old mines that they found in the jungle so I could photograph them. This is a burial ground outside of the village. I thought was really beautiful.
and these are all
Yeah, so
right? Yeah.
this was all Hasselblad. Hasselblad and a little bit of Rolleiflex as well.
What's the
This
meaning
photo
of the fork?
here, excuse me?
The meaning of the fork.
Oh, those were US issue. And if you look closely on there, it actually says US. So these were some US military forks that were issued to the Contra rebels. So I just thought it was, you know, kind of emphasizing US intervention. Down here, this image, this was a former Contra. He came back to the States after the war and ended up carjacking people. So he was sent back to Nicaragua. And everybody in town was scared of this man. And this big concrete flat here, he kind of had a business. He would rent that out to all the coffee growers after the harvest season so they could dry out their beans. And I didn't want to interview him because he would always be really, really drunk and quite honestly scared me. So I tried to keep my distance from him. But when he found out what I was doing and he knew I was leaving, one day he started walking around in this jacket. And so I said, okay, I'll take your photo. And he insisted on getting his shotgun and bringing it out. And then at the last moment, his little daughter kind of rode her bike in and then stopped perfectly on his foot. And that's when I took the photo.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So Kevin, can you talk a little bit about, I'm curious about this because this is specific to documentary. You've captioned all of these, and I'm assuming that these captions are either the same or similar to what's in the book. And captioning is such a tricky thing, right? Because you want the photo to be able to live and do its own work. And yet with work like this, those captions add. Was that a challenging process for you? How do you decide how much information to give or how to caption?
I think first of all, I think it varies from project to project.
Yeah.
With something like this, where people are giving me these stories, it had to be incorporated in some way. There's another really great photographer named Taryn Simon, and she describes text as kind of an anchor. The way that she does it in one of her books, Contraband, is she'll have an image and then behind it, you can read this little detail that adds, you know, kind of pulls it down, and you truly understand what's going on in this photograph that wasn't quite visible just from your initial viewing.
Yeah.
With this, I didn't want to have the text directly under the image because I wanted people to really focus on the space and what they're seeing. And in the back of the book, that's where the quotes are and the text is. So you can see the image and then kind of fill in the blanks there. And then when you go back and view them again, now you have this information.
I like that.
I didn't want to have the text below it because it'd be like image text, image text, image text. I wanted them to kind of stand on their own, but it had to be incorporated. We can move on to the next project. This is called Imi Haku. This is a body of work I've been working on for
I think there was a question. Paul, did you have a question?
Well, it was really a comment in that I found that the captions were really important to me. For example, in looking at the fork, well, I'm quite familiar with that fork, not that very specific one, but the U.S. Issued flatware. So I have a different reaction to it from what the casual observer who had never held one of those would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did have a second comment.
Okay.
That personal friends of mine have been actively involved in the two political extremes. One who actually was a Luftwaffe pilot, flew bomber type aircraft, and a couple others who were extreme left in Bolivia and in Cuba. One retired as a head of a Communist Party group in Paris before he died. So really great extremes, and glad to see the extremes, the partisan extremes in your documentary.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, well, I'll move on.
One more question. Excuse my
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
yeah, lack. Isn't this the Watergate thing?
No.
No, this was the Contra War. It happened between the 80s and 90s. A lot of people, Oliver North, the Iran-Contra affair.
Oliver North, okay.
That's what this is on.
Okay. All right. And we supported the
Contras.
Yeah.
which were trying to overthrow the government.
right.
Correct.
Okay.
Kevin only likes to go places where things are really complicated, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
You've noticed that.
Complicated case.
It's interesting. It's great you bring that up because in my undergraduate studies, it was more of a black and white, A plus B equals C type situation. With my camera going down there and being able to interview and kind of, it became a much broader gray area, especially when you hear the personal reasons and stories of why people took arms to fight for either side. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go down there. And that's what I learned from it most of all, is how everything really deteriorates. The next project I brought up here on the screen is something I've been shooting in Hawaii for the last 8 years. And it's called Imi Haku, which means a search for the source. And it has a lot to do with my father, who grew up in Hawaii and passed away when I was really young. So I would go over there for about 2-3 weeks at a time and kind of trace his steps in areas where he lived and grew up and places significant to my family. And I would make a point to photograph people that I met, and unlike doing extensive interviews, I would just stop them and ask if we can make photos.
Are these done with a different camera, Kevin? Not to get technical.
Yes, please, I love the technical. With this, rather than a Hasselblad, which is a much slower camera, X7 and Mia 7 rangefinder, both medium format. The Mia 7 was fantastic because it was so light. And I really like the Pentax 6.7 because of the interchangeable lenses. And most importantly, it's a very durable camera, where I found the Hasselblad and the Rolleiflex were actually quite fragile. You had to be very careful with them.
They're super fussy. They scare me.
Yes, very much so, especially in humid environments. So a lot of these, like these are, it's a plantation village where my father used to live.
So these are not captioned?
No, these aren't. So for this series, I like the coming back to what I mentioned about notes. I really just want to place these all together, and I don't want to front load it so much with text. I want people to be able to kind of sniff it out. I want it to be a book that would require multiple viewings, right? And I backed away from this a while because my wife and I moved to the Philippines for about 3 years. So I haven't had a chance to visit this much. The next project here, this is called One. This was more of a performative exercise where I'm hitchhiking the Golden Gate Bridge north to see how far I could get. I'd give myself about 3 days and photograph constantly. Just different items, places I would visit, individuals that would give me a ride. And then the goal for the places so the goal for this was the type of book I wanted to make was the old AAA road maps you would get. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to print those and kind of place them in newspaper bins all along Highway 1 from where I'd gone and just give them away for free.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. I know that house with the buoys on it.
Yeah, that's right there on Highway 1. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so this here is a link to the book that I did. There's clippings, things like that. The one thing I would recommend too is eventually you guys definitely get together a website because photo editors, commissions, that's going to be their access point to you and your work. Keep it simple. This book down here was something I was doing in the Philippines with other artists over in Manila, and we self-published that. We did that all in this place called Recto in Manila. It's a printing district. We made about 50 copies, and we were able to sell those in Europe and in Manila as well. On the website here too, I always keep a portrait section, just so photo editors that come in can kind of see the type of what you're doing. A lot of the commissions you get predominantly, especially here in the Bay Area, seem to be portraits. Let me pull up something else really quick I wanted to show you guys.
You didn't have any of the work from the Philippines up here.
Not yet. I haven't updated my website in years.
I wasn't going to say, Kevin, because you started having kids and stuff, right?
yeah. And when we moved to the Philippines, I started freelancing and doing a bunch of stuff with Bloomberg and the California Sunday Magazine. But I haven't put a lot of that stuff on my website. Quite honestly, I've been using an app and a website called Blink, and I would definitely recommend you guys check that out. I know a lot of photo editors, that's what they go to now. It's a global map, and they can click on a city, and then with Blink, a lot of the photographers in that city that are available come up. So I will put up my photos there, and then they can see what kind of work I've done, who I've worked for, and then they contact me, and that's how I would get gigs.
Cool. And I know you'll get into the business stuff, but what percentage of your money is coming now from photography? I mean, or from documentary or from other sources of photography?
Right now, I mean, to be honest, in the last 2 weeks, I got offered a gig with the Atlantic, photographing Chinese American in San Jose. And then I just got contacted by the California Sunday to do something. But unfortunately, my situation now, I had to say no because my son's daycare is closed and my wife is working. So I can't, I can't get out of there for about 5 days to work on this.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. This pandemic is, it looks like you.
Yeah.
Did you freeze, Kevin?
Yeah,
I was about to ask.
You're frozen. Did we lose you?
Can you see me now?
Yeah, you're back.
See you, but the screen with the.
Yeah, your screen, your computer screen is frozen.
Yeah, your computer
That's
screen is
your end?
definitely frozen.
Okay, am I still frozen now?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a little feedback too, coming in and out, but
Okay.
yeah,
Can
you don't
you
have
guys see
enough.
me?
I wonder what that is. Can see you, but you're there. I can see you now. It looks like you might it might just be the interwebs are not cooperating with this. Yeah. But your screen is like halfway down.
Halfway, woo!
Yeah, we can't see if you're looking at something active on your screen, we can't see it. Somehow
Oh, no.
that's weird.
Well,
Okay,
I
let
have
me
a
see
question
if I
while you're doing that. You talked about the cameras that you used in Nicaragua. Those were film cameras, right?
So,
Yes,
you're
they were.
Yeah.
So how did you get your film processed and know that the picture was going to turn out?
That's the old days, huh?
Yeah.
We knew because we knew. Yeah.
Well, what I would do is I would actually put my film in a freezer in town, all the film I hadn't used yet, and then the film that I had exposed where I dug a hole under the hut and kind of put it in there so it would stay cool and out of the sun for about a month.
Wow. And then you had it processed in the U.S.
Yeah, when I would get home, then I would process everything then.
Are you in you're in Petaluma now, or where are you?
San Francisco.
You're in San Francisco?
Yeah, we're right up in Twin Peaks.
Wow, I'm impressed. I had to leave, but yeah. So your screen is still. Does your screen look normal to you, Kevin?
It does. I just are you able to see what I have up now?
There it goes. Yep. Now we got it. Okay.
Okay. So this is
We
something I
got it.
want. You're all able to see it? Is that correct?
Yep.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to show.
Let's
This
see
is
it.
something This is a project I've been working on in Vietnam. So my father was in Vietnam in 68, 69. And when I was living in the Philippines, I started traveling over there. He was involved in some things in the Mekong Delta near the Cambodian border. And there was a specific mountain called Nui Kodo. He was there, and I started contacting soldiers that he fought with over there through Facebook. And they would be telling me stories. And I flew over there, I got on a motorcycle. I found the mountain, and I started locating all these remote bases that he would fly in and out of. And I even started interviewing Viet Cong, people that were shooting him. And for instance, my dad was a flight surgeon, a medic. I even found a South Vietnamese soldier, and are you guys able to see me zoom in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I found a South Vietnamese soldier that was shot in the neck that my dad actually sewed up. I did, again, extensive audio interviews with all these guys that were there at the same time. Photos all around the mountain of various places that were bombed and shot up. And then when I came back to the States, I started tracking down the soldiers that were there with my dad, and I would interview them. And last year, one of the pilots with my dad returned to Vietnam for the first time in 50 years. And we went to the mountain, and he met about 4 or 5 Viet Cong, and they talked about their experience and kind of showed us around the area, the various caves they used to hide in. And these vets started sending me their own personal photographs of their time there with little notes written on the back. This is actually, if I can zoom in here, this is the mountain of Nui Kodo itself. These are, this is an impact from one of the 106 shells. And then I've been kind of clipping satellite images of the mountain as well. It's flying towards the mountain. And then some of the personal items that a lot of the soldiers have for war. So here, this is a lighter that Lieutenant Schiffman, who was in my father's unit, still has to this day. This is one of the soldiers on the mountain when the Americans attacked. And this was Glenn O'Leary, one of the pilots that came over there with me on the last trip. This is a little girl who was born with some problems from Agent Orange. This here was one of the Buddhist temples that Special Forces soldiers would set up camp at before and after the attack.
And these are
And then-
you're shooting on film still. Is that correct, Kevin?
This is all film, correct? Yes. This was an elderly couple. They're about 82 and 83, and they were still working up on the mountain in some banana fields. So I interviewed them, what they remembered about those specific November and December of '68.
Did you have a translator?
Yes, I did. And I'll tell you more about that in a second. It got complicated. I was followed by the police at one point.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
It's a communist country, so.
yeah. So this format, is this the way that, because are you thinking about this as a book project? This feels like a, I'm just curious about the format and the presentation. I love it.
Yes. So what I do is it's always for a book project with me, but
Yeah.
I create these long, big edit sheets and then cut things out, and then I kind of move images around and start placing them next to each other to see how they kind of activate, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll pull from the layer. So with this project, I've been using a lot of ephemera, newspaper articles I found, as well as various still lifes and landscapes I was shooting while I was there. Like this wall right here in the middle is full of bullet holes. This albino man, if you can see on the bottom here, I was actually sent a photo from one of the soldiers of this young albino boy that he photographed in November '68 that used to come to the soldiers at the base of the mountain and play with them. And he said, "Hey, an albino man down there, show him this picture." So I asked around, and all of the local police were telling me, "No, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead." And one day I was photographing the mountain. Now, the corner of my eye, I see this guy coming, and I notice his hands are white, and he's got this big hat on, and the hair on my arm kind of stood up. And I walked over to him and I said, "Excuse me," and I showed him the picture on my phone. And he looked at me, he said, "Where did you get that? That's me." So I found him. And Glenn, the other American who came with me, he was arriving 2 weeks later, and I told him, "The man that took this photograph asked me to look for you and he'd like to meet you." So when Glenn arrived, we went into the village, and about 75 people were there waiting for us. And they cooked us some field mice from the rice fields. So there's like barbecued mice, a bunch of rice, and it was this huge procession. I thought it was incredible. It was very emotional for both of them.
Goodness.
So, and then over here, this man here in the middle is Lieutenant Schiffman. That's the North Vietnamese flag that he took off of the mountain. He still has it today. With the Americans, what I've been doing is we would meet at locations like a diner. This is down in Calabasas, California. And I wanted to photograph them right after we had met for the first time and kind of talked about all of this. And for a lot of them, it's the first time they've talked about it in years and years and years. Let me back out here. So that's this current project. Let me see what else I have here.
So in thinking about it, you're thinking about books. You also do assignments. One of the things
Yes.
that in my presentations to these guys last week, the ones that I made to introduce them to this subject, I distinguished between photojournalism and documentary in terms of, in part, the placement of it, because documentary, the photographs are primary, and in photojournalism, they're often accompaniment, and they move faster. And one of the things that I'm really struck with, what you're the epitome of documentary. You deliberately move slowly, you research, you let this story develop, and you're thinking more in this long-term narrative. I'd love for you to add to that if you can.
You're absolutely right. A lot of photojournalism assignments are, I call them hot news. You get a call. This is what we're working on. We need you to go down to 2 or 3 days doing this. And in a lot of those instances, you'll utilize a shot list, right? Wide interaction, close up, and you're kind of covering all the bases so that when you go back to the editor, they can piece together the photo story.
Right.
Like you said, yes, with documentary, it's more long form, and I find like relationship building, right? Back and forth, having that access, and it also gives you the ability to allow the story to grow. In almost every instance with documentary projects, I go into it thinking one thing, and then it becomes something totally different.
Right.
It evolves, because you're learning so much as you go along. And that's one of the wonderful things I love about it, because otherwise you could be limiting, right? One of my mentors, Jason Fulford, told me to, if you're always looking for one thing, you're missing everything else that's happening around you. So it's a fine line between letting go and holding on, right? So what I try to do is I try to collect as much as possible, collecting these notes that I can piece together later. And something that helps a lot too with documentary, working slow, is stepping back and staying away from the photos for a while and kind of severing a lot of personal connections to them, as harsh as that might sound. But it is, I find for me, it's very beneficial.
Gary Winogrand said that he would stay away from his photos so that he could forget that he took them. He would edit them as if he was like not the guy who created them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. Because you can let them sit more on their own, right? You don't look at it and then have that personal story you can immediately attach to it.
Exactly.
Okay, let me see where I am on my notes here.
Mr. Kunishi, I do have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
That said, with your publications with like Revolution and your works in the Manila, because they're fully fledged books, does that mean there are projects that you do at your own leisure, or is there usually a deadline in a more like going into the like more business-ish side?
Oh, for book projects?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely when you start working with a publisher, if you're not doing yourself, there's definitely production deadlines, right? Wrapping up your edit, getting things together, moving towards press. Even with personal documentary projects, I find like, and of course, this is just for me. If I don't have a deadline, it will go and go and go. And I forget the photographer's name. She brought up a good point. Somebody asked her, "How do you know when a project's over?" And she says, "When I keep taking the same picture."
Yeah.
Maybe Susan Worsham, I forget who that was, but yeah. So self-imposed deadlines are good. But working on it, and then for me, I find like stepping away sometimes for months, and then coming back with fresh eyes, because let's not do that. Let's start tweaking things more and more here.
The other thing that I'd love, you've mentioned it, and I'd love for you to talk more about, that's really striking, is that you are an aftermath photographer, as opposed to a war photographer. So you think about Nachtwey, and who else can I think of that? Like their MO is often to be there at this moment of the action and the violence, and to be in the center of that. And I find it really, I think it's really, and of course, then you're more in the vein of photojournalism. You need to shoot very quickly, and it's very timely. And you really are talking about like what happens after those events. Am I reading that right? Am I
Absolutely
right? And I think that's an interesting, I'd love for you to talk more about that, because I think it's really intriguing. I love it. I'm actually think it's important. And it's slow.
Well, I'm really interested in, and this is for personal reasons too. Like I lost my parents at a very young age. I'm interested in how people navigate trauma and attempt to put things back together. It's something that I've always found fascinating, seeing how the human condition expands and contracts and gets you through these things, and how people put things back together. So I think with Vietnam, I'm working on a project with Jonestown survivors right now. It's been about 4 years. We went to Guyana last May for the 40th anniversary with two survivors. Again, working very slow with them, just trying to get it right. You know, another thing I think is very important with documentary projects is really researching what people have done to see what you can add to the conversation, right? And being critical of that. For the Vietnam stuff, you know, I got this book here by Mitch Epstein, you know, his trip back to Vietnam. Don McCullum, you know, all the different photojournalists that were covering it back then, you know, looking at what did they cover, what were these things. And it's kind of what you were saying, Sarah. It's very, very hot at that time, right? These were photojournalists in the thick of it.
Yeah.
You know, for me personally, when I was working for Sports Illustrated, I had some really great mentors that asked me really tough questions and basically told me, be careful what you wish for, you know. I always thought, you know, wow, you guys are living this great life, but they were really transparent about the sacrifices they had to make to be a Sports Illustrated photographer and travel for 300 days a year, you know, how that's affected their relationships with people, things like that. So I've always, depending on what angle I go to, like in the Philippines, I did photograph some of the drug war that was happening there with Duterte, and a friend of mine is an op-ed writer for the New York Times, and we kind of went out and covered it for about 3 weeks. And it was very intense, and you know, that was kind of enough for me personally in that environment, especially as a photographer where you're hyper focused on what's happening in front of you through the viewfinder. You know, it's a lot to process. So I think, you know, guys like Nachtwey, he seems like such an incredible individual. If you see the interviews with him, the way that he talks about it, he's so focused on purpose. Yeah. But that type of content is very, 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 very intense. So not that Aftermath isn't, because, you know, in many instances you're dealing with people who are processing very traumatic events, but it's not so much in real time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that speaks to the choice of the Hasselblad, that you can extrude these moments rather than, you know, have to be, it's a different rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes sense. Your screen is stuck again. Are we?
Oh,
just, you know,
looks like your screen is
I was
stuck
completely
again.
absorbed in that conversation, so I wasn't worried about it. And you guys be sure to pop in here. I'm just, you know.
Yeah, give me some questions.
Yeah, I know they're all odd. Yeah.
It's okay. We're just enjoying your artwork.
Yeah.
What do you mean we're all odd?
I'm odd. I don't know. I've always been in awe of Kevin.
Odd.
Odd. No, and I'm odd too, but
Even now you're odd, huh?
yeah, I'm odd.
Well, I had a question that I posted on our discussion.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Go ahead, Nat, because I rather than take up Kevin's screen, if you can remember your questions, ask them.
Yeah, I asked, how do you maintain your ethics and morals when you're doing documentary?
That's a good question.
Well, you know, of course, I don't manipulate photographs, and that's one of the great benefits of film. It's really difficult to do. Just being open and transparent, you know, sense of right and wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, you have very specific questions with a lot of the work, and it's kind of their court, right, how they answer that.
I missed what you said there.
If you're interviewing individuals, you have very specific questions. I record everything in our interviews, you know, so it's all there. I mean, just alone with these veterans from Vietnam, I think we're at 30 or 40 hours of interviews. It's all there on tape. And of course, you know, I always start every conversation with, this is being recorded. And honestly, with the people I'm collaborating with, I run it by them first too. You know what I mean? Especially when you're dealing with some very intense things that are difficult for people to talk about. So I guess in that mindset, when I go into these projects, I always view it as something that's collaborative, that we're working on together. You know, it's not me extracting things. It's something that we're creating and building together. And it's all established on trust, right? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, because it seems like it would be very easy to take photographs to make a story in the line that you wanted to see it as opposed to the line that it really is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in a way, isn't it? You're kind of grabbing these little pieces, right, and trying to put something together. And in certain instances, especially in regards to, with Vietnam, everybody has a different view of what happened, and we're talking about things that are 50 years ago. So we're kind of cross-referencing stories and saying, oh yeah, that did happen. Okay, and then like near the Cambodian border, there were a lot of these old French fortresses. And people kept talking about that. And there's no French fortresses there. And then we found one. We're like, okay, it is here. And, the other people were saying, I don't think that happened. We're able to kind of collect this and put it together and put the puzzle, all together into the one thing. So in regards to truth, or I think what you're talking about, like what really happened, in these instances with Aftermath, it's so long ago, we're trying to piece it back together, right? So everybody's voice is kind of a piece of that puzzle.
So I have a question for you. So what are the best techniques of doing a documentary? Like, what is a specific way of doing it? Like, best technique?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. I would say the first thing is research. Really, really look into the things you want to explore. Ask yourself tough questions, like why do you want to do it? Research who has done it, when they did do it, what did they have to say? What do you like about that project? What don't you like about it? And then start putting together shot lists, templates of how you're going to execute and accomplish this. Traveling, villages, locations, cultural protocols on how you're engaging with people to get this access. We were talking a little bit about Vietnam. I was in this village near the Cambodian border, and it was my third or fourth trip there. And at 5 a.m. the morning after I arrived, the police were at the hotel asking about me. And I was staying with this lovely Cambodian woman, and she refused to let them in. She said, his father was here. He's kind of researching about his history. But then they followed me for about 3 days. And they weren't very good about it. I think they were not very good about it deliberately, so they would know that I saw them. But I had established contacts there with some people in the military, and I told them, I said, hey, it's never a good feeling getting followed. And they made some phone calls and said, look, don't worry about it. And I said, well, I feel better if I went and talked to them. So I went into the police station and I showed pictures of my father. I said, this is what I'm doing. And it was fine. So I would go into villages, and after that, I would meet with the local police. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. And of course I was monitored. Prior I was talking to, South Vietnamese soldiers. I would kind of keep my distance from them and predominantly talk to local villagers or Viet Cong in the area, just so I didn't make any problems for other people, because I have the ability to leave, right? They live there. So I guess planning for each project is it kind of varies, right? Like if you're going to do something down in the Vallejo shipyards, looking into the history of those areas, what were they used for, what were they abandoned, what are they using for now, right? Just having all that knowledge beforehand, especially too, because when you get in front of individuals that are relevant to your story, you can really connect with them and show that you've researched this and that you're serious about what you want to do, right?
Right.
I mean, these guys are all going to have to they're under a special challenge this semester because they have a documentary project, and it's like a dip your toes in documentary project. So they have 2 weeks, which isn't enough time, of course, never is in school. You know how that went. But the other thing is they're all on lockdown. So what kind of thoughts would you, and most of them have some ideas, they're getting started, but what thoughts would you have for them on doing a lockdown project in 2 weeks?
Lockdown
You're on the
project.
spot here, Kevin. Yeah.
Well, I think that you have to embrace your restrictions, right? Like you can't really go out and don't fight it. Like make it to your benefit. Focus on your day-to-day life, what you're doing. Collect a lot of images, and then maybe visualize that you're going to string those together later. come in really tight with your lenses, like, really close focus, really wide, like diversify your focal lengths, and just continually shoot. I thought of a book you guys should definitely check out, especially now that we're all in lockdown. It's called The Photographer's Playbook.
Yes. Oh, I meant to go to my office and grab it. It's so awesome. Yeah.
It's like, I think it's like hundreds and hundreds of self assignments you can do with a lot of restrictions similar to being under lockdown, like photographing your city block, right? It was compiled with all the fantastic photographers and little assignments they give their students. And I always go to that if I feel like I'm in a rut or there's some sort of blockage. I'll just flip through, pick an assignment, and go on and shoot it. Just to, like, for me with photography, I have to get the gears going again. If I haven't shot in a few weeks, it definitely, I gotta get up and running again to really get in the zone. I think now the fact that we are in lockdown is going to be incredible. I mean, what a great historical document that we'll have years from now of what it was like and what we're doing, if you have individuals that you're in lockdown with, like kids or loved ones too, you can utilize them as subjects. Focus on, if you're in the house, you have 24 hours in a day, you make it a little bit more performative, photograph on the hour, every hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
think about light.
Right.
Think about light, how it passes through your house, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things I was thinking of this morning, like every morning when I wake up, watching how the light and the shadows go across our ceiling, and then create all these different, different little images of things, like photographing that. You can utilize things. Think about literary terms like allegory and metaphor, how photographs can activate in that area.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and I would encourage it. I can see if anybody wants to volunteer to look at projects. But Kevin, do you have one more stuff that you want to show us of your work? I don't want to.
Let me see. I put one up here of some stuff in Alaska.
Ooh, cool.
Alaska.
Are you guys able?
Ooh.
Are you able to see it on your screen?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a black and white linear, or not black and white. Oh, it is not. So are you mixing? Tell us about the tonal range on this.
Yeah, this was something I shot on the Pentax 645Z. It's like a medium format digital camera. I went up to Alaska to visit some family and friends. I just wanted to test it. And I have an uncle that's been a homesteader up there since the 60s. So I just put this together quickly this morning. It's a portfolio.
You're always doing documentary, right? Doesn't matter. You're never on vacation, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, go ahead.
Except it's really difficult for me to photograph my family, which is really weird. It's a struggle. It's really tough.
Yeah.
But I think you have so much of a deeper relationship with your family. So like there's a dynamic sometimes. So it's interesting. But this is a uncle I have there. He's been a homesteader for years, and he's been sending me his personal photos from the 70s when he moved up to Alaska. And I go up and visit him, do landscapes, a lot of interior shots of his cabin, different things he collects, kind of similar to what I was talking about earlier, playing with light and shadow. These are his rifles, just allowing the light to come across them. So it's like the suggestion of it. His old Ford truck, getting down inside, getting those details. I always remembered his muddy floor mats, so I kind of wanted to photograph those.
Question, just a matter of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Your uncle's probably a lot older than you are.
Yeah.
That was his picture of the Hudson Bay hatchet?
I took this. So I got I brought up a white seamless piece of paper, and then I would take some of his items and photograph them in his backyard.
So he used one of those really crude, horrible to use hatchets? That's the worst kind of hatchet I've ever used. That's why I ask. My father had one of those too.
I think he did back in the 70s. His house, I wish I had better photos to show, but it's just like this antique museum of all these things he's collected over the years.
Well, that was an antique in the 70s. That's why I was asking.
So this is the river you have to cross to get to his cabin over there on the left. These were the northern lights out in behind his cabin. This is for his, he shoots these things with his rifle.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the portraits I did of him. His cabin at night. I brought a flash so I kind of blast things.
I'm so glad you said that. It just mind meld, because I was like going, so tell it, because some of my students are really grateful that we're past the point in the class where I don't make them use lights, because the first half of this class is a lot about studio lighting.
Yeah, studio lighting. Mm-hmm.
Most of you had fun, right?
Yeah, I had fun using it.
Anyway, but what I'm noticing when I'm looking at your work, it's like, yeah, everything that you ever took, everything that you ever learned comes invaluable, still life. And I was going to ask if you ever do use speed lights or flash or,
Oh, yeah.
And then what's it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this project, actually, I really started embracing it a lot more. Prior, like in Hawaii, I would use some fill just to like bring up the shadows a little. But now I've, been blasting it. And I like how it looks. I like how it feels.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, with the trees, that's great.
And just some more details, stuff inside his cabin. And a lot of the Philippine work, I think we have. It's going to take a while. I think I probably have close to 15,000 images, but a lot of flash on that, especially because at night. And I would even gel it, and it's just a tool in your toolbox, right? That you can that you're painting with. So I really enjoyed that in the Philippines, especially because it was so foreign to me. Everything was very, very, very saturated and vivid. And, by utilizing a flash, I could really enhance that.
So you took lighting classes when you were in grad school?
Oh, yeah.
With Eric Butler?
Yeah.
Was it with Eric?
Yep. And John Vano.
And John Vano. Yeah. When I first got this job and I realized I was going to teach lighting again, I called Eric about every 3 minutes.
It's a tool you have to know with photojournalism and with especially editorial.
Yeah.
A lot of the editorial assignments you guys will get, it's like photograph this guy at noon, and you go, I always try to get in an hour earlier, or sometimes I'll go the day before just to see what I'm dealing with. Yeah. And then with lights, you're able to control the situation, Yeah. So it just makes everything a lot simpler.
Are you shooting film when you're on assignment?
It really depends on the client. With the Atlantic thing that I was talking to you about earlier, I wouldn't have shot that on digital, because they also need a very quick turnaround like that evening. But with publications like California Sunday, they're very film friendly. I photographed an assignment on Filipinos in the cruise ship industry. So I photographed in Manila, and then I went to Long Beach to photograph some people that were living there, and that was all film based. But it mostly comes down to the budget, right? So if I'm going to be shooting a 5-day assignment and have to get this developed, and I shoot a lot, like that's going to cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, as well as I'm going to have to scan everything on the back end, color correct it, get everything, the turnaround is going to be longer compared to me shooting on a card, plugging it in, do my selects, and then transmit, right?
Yeah.
But that was a great question. Yeah, it mostly depends on budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which it seems is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
So back to the business end, can you talk a little, generally and maybe specifically, like how you have managed your business end, how you have paid the bills, how you are paying the bills, how things, like how does that work?
Well, I think one of the most important things embarking on it is being clear on how you define success. Like really have a good, long, hard talk with yourself about that. That was one of the advice, my mentors gave me a long time ago. I really find that diversifying your stream of income is extremely important. So that's a kind of a mixed bag of commercial clients, editorial, things like that. The pay rates for editorial are not great, especially in a very expensive place we live, like the Bay Area. I think that last assignment I talked about earlier, it was $250, to drive to San Jose, photograph this stuff. And you think about what you're spending on your equipment, it's not a lot of money. If you can, wrap that in with a couple bigger commercial clients, or whether it's doing weddings, which is good money. You're thinking $2,500 for a day, 2 days worth of work. Just really focus on those multiple streams of income and kind of covering all your bases. In my experience, and with people that I know, has been the best way to make it sustainable. A lot of that changed for me too once I got married, and now we have a child living in the Bay Area. I've had to really make some decisions on how we're going to diversify to keep the income coming in. And also I'm not able to go to Vietnam for a month, it's tough. So.
Yeah, that you're very dependent on travel, but then that becomes, yeah.
It's good. I think I've got about, look at my hard drives. I've got about 6 projects with thousands and thousands of photos. So I've got at least 2 years of editing ahead of me and putting these things together.
So you're okay with this lockdown going on for a couple more years?
Well, I mean,
no, I'm kidding.
I mean, if unfortunately I don't have any time because our daycare got closed. So I have a 4-year-old like wild animal running around our house all the time. So not a lot of time for work.
Is your 4-year-old feeling better?
Yeah, much better. Yeah. Any other questions? I mean, did that answer your question regarding the finances?
Does that help? Did anybody want to add into that? It's kind of what I keep telling them, and I keep going, well, I think I'm right.
One thing I would do too is I would do informational interviews with photographers. I would try and find some Bay Area photographers, whether on the ASMP or the APA's website.
Yeah.
And ask for an informational interview to talk to them about business, how they make it work. I would look to assist. You will learn so much assisting for someone, on whether it's in weddings, editorial shoots, commercial shoots, lighting setups. You can take notes of the gear that they're using. More importantly, how they interact with clients. It's a great way to get paid and really kind of, learn the tricks of the trade. That has been extremely beneficial to me, and provides mentorship opportunities. People, learn from their successes as well as their mistakes, which is just as important.
Yeah, I think the diversification, I'm really, I actually honestly didn't realize how much you diversified, but I knew the kind of education that you got at the academy, that you had a bag full of really great tools, which was, I think, one of the best things that we did for students at the academy, was make sure that when you went out, you had a lot of capability in a lot of different areas. And it's really nice to hear that you use those. Yeah, and it also will help me to reinforce that, really learning those studio lights. Good idea.
A lot of my classmates from school, that have gone to that commercial route are really, really doing well.
Yeah,
It's just a different track. Like you really, like with commercial photography, that's where like a lot of the, big money clients are. So.
And and I think that's a great conversation too, that I like to have with people, is like, you need to decide what you want to be doing with your days. And if commercial photography is fun for you, go for it, because you'll have a lot more money.
Yeah.
Sounds really bad. That sounds really rude. But we all have to find, like, I like listening to you, because you have to find the sweet place and figure out what you need to do that work. And for the kind of work that this beautiful, really satisfying personal work that you get to do, it's great that it supports you to a certain level, but you also make sacrifices for it. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But don't you think that it's part of you setting yourself apart, like from other people? Because I know wedding photographers that are charging $5,000 and $6,000 a wedding, and you're talking 2,500. I personally have charged over 500 for a wedding, and that was just starting out. Right now, me shooting my boudoir clients, I'm charging 300 and making anywhere from $100 to $200 more on extra editing, and I'm just starting. So I feel like you're kind of lowballing yourself on some things too. Sorry,
Well,
that
Yes.
sounds
I don't-
bad, but I just,
Well,
I think that
I
you're
don't-
setting the bar low for
She's
people.
brutal. She's brutal.
Sorry.
No, I was
Oh, jeez,
I don't.
Colleen.
Let me clarify. I'm sorry. I've never done wedding photography. I was
It
just saying
sucks.
that's a way to diversify.
I would say I'd rather put my hand in a Cuisinart, but if you can do it,
Yeah,
man,
no, I don't like wedding photography. That's what I'm saying. Like 2,500, no way. Like
not
it's
worth
an
it. Yeah.
experience. No, there's so much work and it's so stressful. I mean, the
Why
insurance
is
alone
it
you have to
sucks?
carry is insane.
Colleen,
Sorry.
my Kevin has a boudoir photography business that's doing quite well, and it's such a great niche for you. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's exactly right. You found this thing that makes you really happy, that is in demand, that you know. So it's cool. Somebody else jump in. What else?
Oh, sorry. I have never done photography professionally, so I would like to know what's the sucks part of wedding shooting.
It's so stressful because if you miss that one moment, if you're not getting your focus right, like things happen so quick. You have to shoot quick. You have to pay attention to everything going on. And if you're shooting by yourself, it's really hard. You definitely want at least another shooter with you, and then you have to edit everything, and you're dependent completely on the emotion of the bride. Like that's all it is. Like when you finally show your pictures, it's whether she is happy with what you got or not. It doesn't matter how fantastic your pictures are. If you miss the people
If she doesn't think she
wanted,
looks great, you're
suck.
screwed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can't handle it. No, can't. Well, those are great. Does anybody? I want you to ask questions of Kevin, but I also wanted to know if anybody wanted to volunteer to show some of their work that they're working on for their project.
I would.
Oh, Terry. Okay, cool.
I actually have the PowerPoint done.
You want to share your screen?
Yeah. However I do that.
Okay. So Kevin has to stop sharing.
Okay.
Is that okay, Kevin? Can we do that?
Of course.
Okay.
Just make okay.
And you let
Stop
me
sharing,
know how
all
much
that.
time you have. I know we're all hanging out at home, but you know, if you
I've got plenty of time.
okay, cool.
All right. So
then you find the share screen button, which should be down at the bottom, Terry.
Terry, is that
I've got to open up the PowerPoint first. I know that because
Right, you should do that.
So let me.
Here, I'm gonna gallery screen for a minute so we can see. I can see everybody's here. Emmanuel didn't make it. I'm glad I'm taping this because he really wanted to be here. I wonder what happened. And I noticed. So Lisa, you have some stuff up. Danny has a few things. Pedro, it's good to see you. You have some stuff up. Anybody else post their documentary? I know Toshiro and Vicky aren't in this class, so they don't count. Alice? Oh,
They don't count.
I want to say that I deliberately haven't posted because I changed the scope of the documentary and the fine art, and I'll have to send you a note of why.
Okay, I'm cool.
I just found there was too much in both.
You haven't gotten arrested yet, though, right, Paul?
No, but in my documentary, you'll see some live ammunition next to one of my subjects.
That sounds pretty scary.
Paul's trying to get
it wasn't really.
arrested. Yeah, I know.
Paul's trying.
Taking a while to come up. So you graded, I think, the fine art, but I didn't notice any kind of comments.
Oh, because I probably commented on because I commented so much in the discussion.
Okay,
That's why I'm not doing that.
that's fine. I just didn't know if I missed it.
Do we want to, you know, Terry, if you want to take some time to get that up, I want to share either Pedro, are you?
It's coming up right now.
Okay, cool.
So it's just, well, I
I
thought.
won't share projects that people don't want to be looked at, Kevin to look at, but I know there's.
So should I explain what the project is first, or?
Yeah.
What? Okay, so
I would say, ask Kevin. Should she explain?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I love going out and taking pictures of nature. That's really, I'm a nature photographer. And the other thing, oh shoot, why is my Zoom not? There it is. So being that.
Screen, are you there?
I'm sharing. Okay, hold on, I'm sharing.
Yeah.
There you go. It's, at least I'm trying to share. I'm going share screen, but nothing.
Yeah, you share screen, and then it should say, if you really want to share your screen, I think it moves, the message moves to the top.
There it is, there it is, there it is. Okay, here we go. Share. So I've been going out to the Sassoon Wildlife Center, the Sassoon Marsh, and taking pictures. Now, should I put it in present mode or just go through the slides?
Either way. I think if you go present, it goes full screen, and that might be good.
All right, so I'll do that. So what I've done is
so explain to Kevin, because he may not be familiar with our
Sassoon Marsh. Anyway, the Sassoon Marsh has all kinds of bird animals and, well, other animals too. And it's a challenge to capture them flying away. It's a challenge just to capture them sitting there. So what I did is I combined pictures of them stationary and then pictures of them flying away and then pictures of the marsh. So it's supposed to give you a story about what the marsh is about. Okay. That's the entrance.
Oh, did you get a cinnamon teal? White face eye.
Yeah.
Black neck steel. Oh, I love that ibis shot. That's a nice one.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Butts, duck butts, shovelers. Oh, good.
Very nice.
And then this is the end one kind of going away. So there you go.
Okay.
Nice. Very nice.
Anyway.
So what thoughts do you have about taking that from, deepening that or furthering that, Kevin?
I really liked the images. There was that one of the crane where you had looks like you shot it at a wider aperture where there was a shallow depth of field. So on the left of the frame, the foliage was kind of blurred out.
Yeah.
Is there a way I can?
That one?
I think it's
the
one.
see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
See how that foliage in the bottom left?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like how it's kind of, it seems like you're kind of peering in and catching a quick little glimpse. Mm-hmm. Maybe image alignment. You see how they're kind of off center like that, or expanding the page. So they fit in.
So not having one on top of the other?
Yeah, maybe just play around with that, evening it out, maybe providing a little bit more room on the edge of the frame on the left, so it doesn't look so condensed.
Oh, okay.
Just a few layout things here. I really like, if you go to the photo above of those, are those hawks that are flying?
Red tail hawks. Actually,
I love that.
Right, a red tail? Yeah, they're both red tails.
Yeah,
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the marsh is, one thing that the marsh, this is one of the biggest marshlands in the country. It's a really important wildlife area that's just down the road from us. And so, one of the things that would be, I guess, interesting for me to get your viewpoint on is how would you, I think these are beautiful wildlife photos, and this is what Terry loves to do. How would you take the content further? Because I'm always so impressed with, I always think about, this deeper story, this other story. How can this become, I know what I wanted to refer to. You talked about how do you add to the conversation? Does that make sense, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, one way would be to maybe, and again, these are just really quick ideas that come to mind. Focus on a specific
spot. Yeah.
Focus on a specific species. These are red-tailed hawks.
Yeah.
Are there any organizations that like work specifically with red-tailed hawks in this marshland?
I don't know.
There's organizations, well, there are, Terry, the Pacific Flyway.
Pacific Flyway, yeah.
There you go. Maybe, because these are really great. Maybe there'd be a way that you could collaborate with them.
Mm-hmm.
Content. I wish I could scroll through these again too. What are some of the environmental challenges that this marshland is facing? That might be something interesting to explore and talk about, and how this affects the birds.
Yeah.
The president is one.
The president is one.
Yeah, this area is quite protected, but it is it's constantly threatened.
Okay.
Yeah, Terry, do you know much about that? You know who I would get in touch with, Terry? Sorry. Are you a member of, do you know about the Solano Land Trust?
I know about it, yes.
I think that would be a great organization to touch base and get some information.
Yes, good job.
The edges are super.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Yeah, is there anything I can do to fix that? I've tried going over it with my Exacto-Knife again.
Who's on the phone? You guys, who's on the
phone?
Yeah.
Or I can't.
Let it be fuzzy and then come in from the top hard.
Hello.
My phone.
If you're moving a brush back and forth,
I think it's Sid.
Sydney, mute. Sydney, mute. Thank you.
There you go.
Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing because other people should have a chance to do theirs.
So who else? I know Christy, Pedro, Alice has an interesting one. These Pedro and Alice, I think, are both doing COVID-related projects. Is that true? I know Pedro is.
Well, I was going to, but then I kind of changed mine because I had an idea with my family actually has a farm, and I decided.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. So it's still, I saw that. It's really beautiful.
What's he gonna do? I missed it.
I'll show. Okay, can I show?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I thought those were really lovely. Hang on, I've got to get back into. Let me show you all my personal information before I.
Yeah.
I hope my bank account was open there. Okay, hang on. Move you guys over. There we go. 151. Do you use Canvas, Kevin?
Canvas? No, I don't.
Oh, get to know Canvas right now, Kevin. It's going to be your future if you want to teach, okay?
Will do.
You know. Especially so I could get all up to speed so I can hire you to come teach my documentary project class. Please. It would be so cool. Okay, documentary project in progress. So it took a while for us to figure out when we had to make this shift over to make sure we had a good way to put these in.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep going. This is Christie's. You can take a glance at things as I scroll down.
Cool.
And this is, this is Danny starting on. She's doing a home project.
Oh, cool.
And Pedro is doing a COVID project.
Mm.
Pedro, I haven't heard a word from you. Oh, well, he'll be there. I don't know if Zoe's there too. So this is Alice's project, and I'll go ahead and scroll through, and then maybe we can go back to Pedro's.
Don't worry, I'm still here.
Okay, good. It's nice to see you, Pedro. It's been a while.
I like that image. That's nice.
Isn't it? I think these are really sweet.
Nice details.
So are you guys busy on the farm these days? So cool. So the difficulty with this format, Kevin, is it's really hard for me to put everything up together. So I'll just, I'll go back up to the top and maybe show 2 at a time.
So, well, right now is basically when we are like starting for the season. Like we have to start planting and stuff, and like getting our tractors ready. So basically that's what I was documenting, like the planting, and we've started weeding a little bit. So
what do you grow?
This year we're growing, I think, watermelons and some like cantaloupe and squash.
Mm-hmm. And it's for market?
Yeah, we usually sell it to like the local stores like Rayleigh's, Nugget, Safeway.
Cool. And why did you decide to switch? Because you were going to do something more related to the COVID, but you switched over to this. I love this detail.
Well, I was going to do something with like the COVID stuff and like similar to kind of what Pedro was doing, but then I kind of like felt like it would be kind of difficult because like I might have trouble like taking pictures in stores and stuff, and that's kind of the stuff that I wanted to show. So like it might have been kind of difficult. And then I went to my farm, and then I remembered that like this was kind of a cool process and I could document it. So I decided to change it to that.
How are things? I'm going to ask a couple. Kevin, jump in here anytime you want. But I'm really curious. Like, how are things different for you this year because of the pandemic? Or are they?
It's actually, well, it's kind of different because like buying our supplies and equipment is a little bit harder, like because you can't really go out. But like it's not that much different because we generally only really work on it as a family. Like we don't really have other workers, so it's kind of cool because it's something that stays the same. That's like not too different because of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
When you said your whole family, like who, like your father, your mother, do your grandparents work as well?
My grandparents do come, but they're not going to come till like later in the season. So right now it's just my mom and my dad and my 3 siblings.
Cool. These are great. I would check out this photographer named Lucas Foglia. Lucas, last name is Foglia, Foglia. Foglia, first name Lucas. He lives in San Francisco now, but he does really interesting work on similar content. Your photographs kind of remind me of his. They're very beautiful.
Thank you.
I think this is a great project, especially since you have access, you have trust, and it's personal, right? It's your family. Like the first image of the tractor with the kid, and is that your dad or your brother?
Yeah, that's my dad. And my brother.
Know, like seeing that type of interaction and teaching and handing it down, and it's great. I don't know if you need the tight shot of the sign to start it. I mean, I think for this quick edit, sure, but I think just keep shooting, hit that shot list, portraits, maybe do individual portraits and a family portrait of your entire family as well. Just collect all this stuff because you can use it later, right? And then if you can, photograph it all the way, harvest and to sale, like that whole process.
Yeah. I mean, even though there's like not that much time to do this project, like I definitely want to keep going with it even after I actually submit the project.
Well, and you could also, Alice, the only thing that we have left after this is the final.
Yeah, final project.
You could keep expanding this since you're right in the middle of it and make it your final project.
Oh, yeah.
That's totally cool with me. And I love, you know, we wouldn't know looking at these that we're in the middle of the pandemic, but I think that somehow that'll become important. Does that make sense to you, Kevin?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, everybody's shooting right now. Like, it's such an important document in time that everyone's dealing with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, one thing, Teresa, I was thinking now is maybe when you go back to photograph the birds as well, try like first thing in the morning or in the evening, just when the light's starting to change.
Mm-hmm.
Could you scroll down a little, Sarah?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Forgot.
I actually have gone at different times of the day.
Having these weird mornings where today was the first morning where the sun was out, because photographing, you know, birds is one thing I do a lot, and I've been trying to get out and do some photography, and it's been cloudy every morning.
Yeah.
The day when I couldn't go anywhere. So, all right.
That's good.
I think definitely one thing. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. I can talk to Terry anytime. I'll tell her all about it.
Okay.
Any final thoughts for Alice, or that's pretty helpful. Alice, do you have questions?
No.
Keep shooting.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. Okay, Pedro, are you up for this? Or Danny, do you want to look at yours? Danny, are you up for this, or do you want to not do it?
I can talk a little bit about it. I totally forgot a whole nother folder of photos that I have from my DSLR of my cats that I meant to look into to include, but this is just the gist of it. I had two ideas going. One was taking a photo every hour from when I wake up to when I get ready for bed of a spot in my backyard, because there's a lot of animals that are out there, my neighbors, landlords. We kind of have a commune style backyard, just how it is. So there's always a lot of activity, and then just some of the sky I get is really neat too. I didn't have a chance this weekend because I kind of focused more on my cat project. This is of my 17-and-a-half-year-old cat, documenting him because he was on his last legs last week. And 2 days after I talked about it, I actually had to have him put to sleep on Saturday. So,
Danny, I'm sorry. I knew it was coming, but
yeah. I was able to get a doctor to come out to the house that I've worked with for many, many years that I used to work for. So it was peaceful, somebody he knew, and it was really, really nice for him to go in his favorite blankie, which I do have a picture of him in that blanket before the day of his final day. So he's always been a very photogenic cat. So I've always had fun taking photos of him. So there's a ton that are on my cell phone that I've taken, and then a bunch that I've taken on my DSLR. I haven't been able to find any of my point and shoot photos because they're all lost onto a hard drive I haven't been able to get into in many years. So, but I still have a few more. So I'm just showing from when I first got him almost 10 years ago from my old work until his last day.
Nice.
And I'm still going back and forth if I want to convert everything into black and white or not.
Well, I really like, Sarah, could you scroll up just a little?
Yeah.
I really like that light there when he's got his eyes closed. It's all nice and warm, you know?
Yeah.
And the one above, if you scroll up a little bit more, the one where he's on the, keep going, keep with the black, keep going. That one there, like, no, go.
Up, one more?
Yeah. No. The other up, sorry, go down.
This one?
One more down, that one there. I love that image.
Yeah. Yeah. This, yeah, go ahead. There's this sense, you know, I lost a dog who was about 16 quite a while ago. It's been a while since I've lost an animal, and I knew he was going to be going soon. I had about 4 days, and I kind of wish I'd done this. But what really struck me was that that you know, that animals aren't afraid of death. Like they, whether or not they know it's coming, they're not really worried about that, you know. And it was really important and special, you know. It was kind of like he was sort of waiting for me to be ready.
Yeah, I think they do.
That sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he kind of gave me the look of, I had two looks in the end that last week, and he gave me a look of not the, Mom, I want food look, or Mom, come pet me. It was more of a, Mom, I'm tired.
Yeah.
That's the look, and I knew. So took some photos of him, the best I could, and then it was really rough Friday and Saturday, so.
I'm sorry, Danny.
Aw.
Yeah. I have a lot more photos of him, and I have a lot more to look through to compile together, and I think I'm gonna collage some of them a little bit in the slideshow, so at least you get a glimpse of certain things, and then as it gets later in life, certain photos, I want to emphasize those as singular photos, I think, in the series.
Yeah. What do you think? That feels to me like the right thing, that it's the way that these are presented. And I know it's not the same kind of project, but in a way it is. I think of your Vietnam project, Kevin, you know, that this is about memory and time compressing, and that, what do you think about that, Kevin, as a
for sure. Especially if you have an archive of all these photos, you know, over the course of your cat's life, of you interacting with them. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot of things you can piece together.
Yeah. I like the 1 hour a day too, but this feels like it's really important and urgent for you right now. I said I like your 1 hour a day project too, but this feels more urgent to you. Is that the way you're feeling?
Yeah, I'm still gonna try the hour a day or every hour for my day, just because it's something that I have plenty of time to do. It's not like I'm gonna be able to go anywhere anytime soon, so that's something I definitely want to try, along with my astrophotography, and maybe incorporate a little bit of astrophotography into that.
What kind of photography?
Astrophotography.
Oh, of the stars?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
So,
well, definitely that could be your final.
Yeah, I'm gonna test that out tonight with the shower tonight. So we'll see how that goes.
There's a shower tonight?
The shooting stars.
Really?
What? My brain's not thinking right. Sorry.
Meteor shower.
There's a meteor shower?
Yeah, really big
meteor shower.
So,
oh, cool. What time?
Idea.
This is starting at dusk, and through dawn. So all night long. And they said for our area, about dusk to an hour after dusk is going to be our best show. We'll see. We'll see what I can get.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, that could be a great final. Any thoughts on that, Kevin?
I think it sounds awesome.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, thank you, Danny. Let me see. I'll go to Pedro and then maybe up to tell us when you're worn out, Kevin, because I don't know.
No. I'm not worn out at all. I'd love to see it.
Cool. So just because it's the next one, this is Pedro, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can get. You let me know which way to go. I hadn't even been over to Helen. Cool. So Pedro, you want to tell us a little bit about this?
So ever since this happened, of course, you know, I still been working every single day, just because of the job that I do. So it's weird. It's a weird divide. So every day you go out, you're used to seeing things. At first, it was kind of cool to not have traffic, not to really see people. But then after a while, it kind of creeps that there's something going on. Something's not quite normal. And when you start seeing, you know, from day one, you start seeing these signs go up, these billboards, kind of what's going out there. And for me, it's a personal thing that when you see something happening, you almost want to take a picture of it right then and there, because it may not happen again. It's kind of like a, you know, a shot. So that's what started this series, and I'm gonna call it series because this whole pandemic, all my shots somehow are tied into the feel of what's going on. You know, it's like speaking as a father here. So when you have a kid, for some reason, that kid's always on your mind, and everything prior to, whether it was, you know, eating pizza, all of a sudden now you're eating pizza, but you're thinking about how your kid would eat pizza. So that's how I'm feeling and how I'm approaching this assignment.
What will this mean for Zoe? Is that what you're saying?
No, what this just in general, this event is, because this event is different. It's not,
yeah,
it's something that still hasn't made its head all the way. So we don't know what the implications are. And just some signs, like, so I have, I'm going to transition this into the final project, but
Good.
some of the signs where the initial order came out, it had one date. That same sign now has another date, and there is potential that that date will be a third date. And so I've been documenting that type of sign, you know, just stuff to, I guess,
yeah,
solidify that this is really happening.
Yeah, and these will be such important artifacts. I'll leave that up to Kevin. Sorry.
Can you scroll up again?
Absolutely.
That one right there. I really like the the tape.
Love this.
You know, it's like this big fence to keep people back. That's a great photo. I would get a lot more of that. These barriers. You know. I really like that image. I mean, this is Pedro's a great start, man. It just seems like something you just got to keep shooting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and that, like, just that image alone that we're looking at. I mean,
I know that's it. Beautifully composed. Yeah.
Pedro, I would also get the ground, like how when you go into places, it says, you know, to stay 6 feet apart. Almost every place you go into, the 6 foot things are marked now. I would also get that in your images. I think I would add to it.
Yeah. Are you going to include any people, any work, Pedro, or do you really want this sort of absence to be part of what you're doing?
You know, I think indirectly, it's been the absence of people that have been more in my shot. So I go back and I'm looking at all the photos, and it's the absence of people that, to me, is really relating to what's going on. But I do have some shots with the people and how drained they look, how they're not in the actual moment, or they are in the sense that they're somewhere else. And I do have, it's funny you say that, Colleen, because I do have photos of, you know, stay 6 feet apart, but the markers are, you know, 4 feet. Stuff that you know, I see odd.
Yeah, no, I've been seeing that too. I kind of laugh at that.
Yeah. You know, every time I go to Trader Joe's, I've decided not to, for whatever reason, to document it, but I really want to get I keep thinking it would be really important to get a photo of the line of the carts of people obediently waiting to go into Trader Joe's. I don't know if you go over there. And I'm just suggesting shots, but
it's like that at Home Depot too. There's a huge line, but Home Depot's so stupid. The people that are waiting in line are like piled on top of each other.
Oh no.
And then they get in the store and it's like, oh, stay 6 feet apart. It's so funny to see. I refused to wait in the line. I was like, this is stupid. They're on top of each other.
Trader Joe's had really gotten it down from the day one, and everybody's so good over there. Like, I've really been struck by that. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Anyway, so that's.
I wanted to go to Home Depot and drove in the parking lot down to the entrance I wanted to use just to get some snail bait, and saw I had a crowding parking lot. I saw a stream of people going in there. I saw a monitor at the door doing nothing, no space between people. So I decided the plants can just be eaten in the garden.
Melissa would say
Oh,
good-
go to Lowe's. It's
Melissa
better.
would
There's no
say
line.
good choice. Good choice. Melissa's, I'm channeling your daughter, Paul. Yeah,
Yes.
Lowe's was good. Lowe's has got
On
it.
the other hand, she isn't really thrilled that we go to places where we find things like high velocity 3mm and 9mm handgun slugs. And this is actually a live round still.
God. He's my oldest and most dangerous student. I have to everybody.
Pedro, I really like your compositions in these photos.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, again, these are great. Just keep. How often do you get out to shoot?
Well, I carry my camera with me, so I like to shoot. I don't like the post process. I don't like the anything else. It's for some reason shooting to me is what I feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I do. I have a lot of images. You know, Vivian Myers was a photographer that I admired, and she had all her photographs in a box in the trunk because they were personal to her. And that's, in a sense, that's some way the way I feel.
Don't do it too much.
Do you know?
I'm breaking.
Do you know Henry Wessel's work?
Oh, that's a good call.
Not familiar with him.
Henry Wessel, last name Wessel. He used to live in Point Richmond. I think you'll love his work.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very similar, like line form, fantastic, incredible compositions.
What about Robert Adams too? But I think Wessel might be a better call. Yeah.
You know, I wanted to share this with you. Sure, you might be under that. Let's see.
Henry Wessel Jr.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you brought up Robert Adams. I think I would encourage you to look at Robert Adams, the book Around the House.
Oh, yeah.
Especially during the pandemic. He just photographed around his house and made some incredibly beautiful stuff.
Lovely guy. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to go I think that's one of the things, listening to your stories, Kevin, is so exciting. I'm like, man, I just want to get traveling again. But on the other hand, there's something about this event that makes me, want to be at peace with being in one place and want to be at peace with making art about what's next to me rather than, feeling urgent about going somewhere exotic. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And it's hard. It's hard to make photographs about the most ordinary of things, our daily life in lockdown. But I think that those are going to be really important. These are really important. These are very ordinary. But I think what I like about what you said, Pedro, is that you're already thinking about these as artifacts. You're already thinking about these as a history that we'll have to look back to understand what happened to us, because we don't know what's happening to us yet. The story's far from over. Yeah. Unfortunately. Sorry, I'm jumping in there, Kevin. I just get all excited.
I wanted to comment about some people's approach to documentary work in the scientific field. Being severely wanting. There's an organization called CalFlora, which documents occurrences of particular examples of species around the state. Most of what's posted are pretty pictures, I would say, of the flower in situ, but showing nothing of the state of where the flower is.
Yeah, nothing about context.
And so lacking context, lacking something that shows the soils and rocks around them, some of it becomes just about useless. And then too, they show things as so-called rare, of which I have found in some places hundreds upon hundreds of specimens, thinking, well, maybe it's rare because the other sites don't have many occurrences. But this place, it just ain't rare. It's only rare if you go there sometime out of season.
I think that's your new job, Paul. I think
Yeah, I think so as well. It's gonna be a new job.
you just
At any rate,
yeah.
I've been trying to update CalFlora with
Good.
what I think is useful information, and I have to say it's tedious.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think though that scientists are not, they're not trained to be, they're not trained photographers. It's too bad. They used to do that because, historically, one of the cool things about the NSGS, the National Geographic Survey, NGS, did I get that right? Anyway, that originally they hired photographers and brought along also painters in order to help them. Timothy O'Sullivan consulted with Thomas Moran about how to make these landscape photos that were part of the initial National Geographic, the National Geographic Survey's trips. Do you remember that, Kevin, back from photo history? Yeah. Yep. Kevin took photo history with me. He was an awesome student. That was one of the first times I taught it. And so, that was part of that idea, was that they honored the idea that composition and thoughtfulness and about the photography was an important part. We don't really have that much anymore. Well, I guess that's not true. I'm lying, because there are some great wildlife photographers, but it's an interesting quandary about what is most valuable in a scientific photo. Sorry, I was just talking off the top of my head.
Okay, I have this up here is your battery, right? It's 27%. That's not mine, right?
Right. I just plugged in a little while ago.
Okay,
yeah,
fine. I'm looking at this and I'm going, I'm plugged in. Why am I?
I just had to plug in because I almost lost all you guys for a second.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, we have a couple more. This is Christy's project, and then Lisa. Or actually, let's go back up to Lisa, because we left. She was at the very beginning, and
that was the very beginning. So
you were the first person to post, and I'm really intrigued with these, Lisa. So I want you to talk about them a little bit, but I'm really curious
Monticello Dam?
to get.
This is at Lake Berryessa.
Yeah.
Like we just decided to go out for a drive, and then let's stop by Lake Berryessa real quick to see what they have in stores. So yeah, it seems like the current situation, the water level was low. The glory hole used to be filled up completely,
Right.
but
yeah.
Yes.
So I'll go. Sorry, I wanted to enlarge those, and I'll go through those. So Lisa, you want to talk about these a little bit, or do you want Kevin to weigh in, or?
I mean, it's up to Kevin if he wants to lean in. Because
without much background, I found these really interesting and curious, and I'd love to get Kevin's initial take on them.
Can you scroll through them one more time?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and go ahead, slowly go down. That's
Yeah.
Great. I think the only one out of here, I would remove the sign.
This sign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else has a mystery to it.
You're right. That's exactly it. And it's also, this is so much better than this.
Yep.
Yep. But they all have this very intriguing, I think of Robert Adams again because of the intersection of nature and the man-made.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have gotten my 10. So I have changed my mind. It's I don't have enough pictures of the Lake Berryessa, so I have the PowerPoint already set up.
Okay, so you completely changed subjects? Is it a whole different way of, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've captured the country property as we kept on a drive. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, I wanna. let's see.
Are you yelling at the scuba diver, Terry, or a cat?
I'm yelling at the cat. It's one cat and the other cat is they're
Miss Business, your screen's still sharing. I can't share.
Oh, I have to stop sharing. Okay. And hang on, I'm gonna step out just for a second, you guys. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead and get started.
Hey, stop it.
Okay, eeny, meeny, miny. I'm gonna share this one with you guys. So this is what I've gotten so far, like my 10 country property pictures as we were going on a drive to Pleasant Hills. Like my parents love going on drives. So I have collected my 10s like based on animals, views of the properties, and I love taking pictures for animals. Like it does explain some significance as we're like going outside and such. Like yeah. I'm just gonna show you a little preview and I'll enlarge in the images like of what I
turkey. Yeah.
It's a turkey, and then found a herd of cows. Like they're herding together. I'm like, well, why not take a picture? Like of what I've seen. And the lady was like taking care of her sheep. Or like, oh, this is so cute. The cool thing is like she waved at us. She waved at us. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet.
I have to say that I was unaware that we could do this screen sharing on our side.
Oh,
so
yeah, technology is awesome.
I will have to investigate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is just for
now we're gonna
fun.
be in trouble, I know.
Yeah, this is just for fun, taking pictures of the fence and like to represent like the boundaries between like animals and us, because like it's almost related to the situation. Really, it's like, you know, it'll have some significance. And we saw a peacock. We're like, ooh, a peacock. We're gonna stop, take picture, and we're sitting on the fence. Like, ooh, okay.
Now, where was this?
Yeah,
it's in Pleasant Hills, Terry, in Vagaville.
Pleasant Hills, okay.
Yeah, that's where it was. We saw turkeys. Like, I thought it was only one peacock. No, there was another one. Didn't put that in. Yeah, and then there were beehives. There were beehives in the field of the country property.
Oh yeah.
We're like, oh, okay. So it was interesting.
So I want Kevin to weigh in on this, but I'll just say, you know, I think that I like these photos, but I feel like that other set of photos was starting to have a coherence that I don't see yet here. I think there's some great photos, but it needs more. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it needs some editing.
Yeah.
And just
some more editing to it.
Well, just having if you were able to like print these out or have like a sheet with all of them and you can continually move them around, you know, and see how certain images feel placed next to others, you know. But I definitely agree with Sarah. I think like that first project you showed was great. Like there's a lot, I think there's a lot more, and it's because of the content and the edit, of course, there's a lot more to move around and explore in that.
Yeah.
And this potentially could be the same thing. It just needs to be a more solid edit like the previous body of work. But the, I really like that image from a distance of the house with the solar panels on top.
Yes, I love that.
You know, 'cause it's kind of,
love that.
It's distant. You don't, you know, maybe as like something to incorporate third or fourth image or at the beginning, like this introduction, you're getting pulled into that.
Okay, yeah.
Then it seems like it's this farm that's built around this house and you could slowly incorporate an individual. I like that peacock, but that would be a great instance. I'd love to see you try some flash to it to really make like all those colors pop, light up the eyes and really charge it with some electricity.
I'm not sure how the peacock would feel.
Exactly, true.
You can torment the peacock that way, but no endangered wild species.
Yeah,
I feel like, you know, the other thing that you talk about, Kevin, that I really liked was this idea of the musical quality of it and each of them being a different note. And I feel like some of these are the same note still. Yeah. So you need to really pick just one. I call it redundancy, but I like that. I'm going to use that metaphor from now on, Kevin, which is like, do these two images strike the same note? Which one is going to carry it? Which one is the one that really needs to carry that note?
Mm.
as well as the sequencing. Do you use Lightroom at all, Kevin, or you print everything out and do
No,
it?
I use Lightroom.
You do, yeah. Yeah,
So-
because Lightroom's a great tool for that, Lisa, to just, you know, put it into a collection, move it around.
Yeah, just move it around. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You don't use any Photoshop, Kevin?
Sometimes, just tweaking things a little.
Yeah.
Exposure, bringing up the shadows, that type of stuff.
You heard Pedro. Pedro took Photoshop, but he's really happy to be done with it now.
He's happy to be done with Photoshop.
Oh my God, I love Photoshop.
Everybody's so different.
Oh God, I hate it.
You haven't taken Photoshop. You're a Darktable guy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have Darktable, yes.
You are a Darktable.
You're a Darktable.
Do you know about Darktable, Kevin?
What does that?
No.
What is Darktable?
Well, Darktable, the only reason I investigated is because I have a bunch of beginning students, and actually some of my advanced students who are, since the shutdown and going online, they can't use the Adobe projects, not products, not because we don't have them available for them, but because their systems won't handle it. So they haven't been able to access it. So I wanted to give them some ideas for different programs, which I haven't really touched because I have had enough trouble getting really, really expert on those. Anyway, Darktable, which Paul, I think, was the first person to mention it, is the most popular, absolutely free editing program that mimics some of the qualities of Lightroom. Not so much Photoshop, it doesn't quite go there. Although it has a couple features that are Photoshop-like. So I embarrassed myself entirely. I downloaded Darktable and tried to learn it in about half an hour or so, and then did a demo. And I told my students, I said, I'm going to do a video demo on a program I know very little about.
Yeah.
Just so that they'd have that option. So it looks pretty cool. Paul uses it all the time. That's all he uses, right, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes I use GIMP.
Oh, GIMP. I decided just to do one. I was overwhelmed. But yeah, so it's okay. The interface throws me off a bit, but I did a very bad demo video. If anybody wants to
Bad demo.
did a disclaimer. Yeah. But you find Lighttable to work. You don't have to use Capture One or any kind of heavy duty editorial stuff, or do you?
No, I mean, if we're on a shoot and we're using Capture One, yeah, sure. If we're shooting remotely or tethered.
Yeah, it's a better tether.
No editing, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah.
So Lisa, some editing. I like that one. I think, and I can't control the screen anymore.
Because
I also like the cows in the shadow. I think it needs some development, but I like the cows.
Yeah, like it's what I capture so far. I'll put some more work into it.
Yeah. Shoot some more, edit it down. Yeah. Kevin, do you find that giving yourself a limit on how many images can help you to be more coherent?
Absolutely. On the back end, like editing and production. I mean, that's one of the, I don't know. It depends. You got to get the shot. I mean, you have the screen on the back of the camera. Pause and look at what you got. But yeah, you can definitely go overboard with shooting digital. It's a little bit easier to limit yourself to film.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Lisa, I think we have one more. We have Christy's, and Christy, you've evolved this a little bit more, right?
Yeah, it's kind of changed a little bit.
You can share with us a little bit of what was going on. So this is Christy's project as it was, but it's changing. There we go. Love that one, Christy. Okay. So do you want me to go through those again, Kevin?
Sure.
Okay.
Now it's funny, that was my favorite one, and yet, Sarah, you said that probably shouldn't be part of it.
Well, but Christy's going to go, she's going to defy me, you know, which is always your prerogative. You never have to do what I tell you to do, ever. You have to go with what you're going to do and what speaks to you. Yeah. But I love the color. I don't know. So we'll have to have Kevin speak to that. I just love the color.
I just off the top of my head, I would check out 2 photographers, Christy. The first one would be Shelby Lee Adams.
Okay.
Lee Friedlander.
Yes.
And then for the color car photography, I would check out a guy named Adam Bartos, Bartos. He did a project on crash up derby racers.
Okay.
Like coming in really tight on like the engines, the interiors, and he used a flash. It's really beautiful work.
I like them both. Your Godox, Terry.
Sorry?
Christy has, I meant Christy. You have your Godox. You have the power now.
I took it out, but there was so much light out there, so I didn't really use it.
Yeah, but for filling shadows, Christy.
Well, if I'm gonna share my screen, what I've kind of switched to.
Yeah. Oh, I have to stop sharing, so then you can. So tell us how this has evolved.
Well, I've decided to focus basically on one of the car places, the older car place, basically.
Cool. See, not the color.
Well, it's got the color.
It's going to have color. Oh, but it's just the one that has the more vintage stuff. Okay.
Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing, but.
That's okay. We'll walk you through it. You'll get there.
Well, it's taking me to preferences.
Oh, no, you go down to share screen all the way at the bottom.
Well, first of all, do you have it up on your desktop? The pictures.
It's desktop with a exclamation and then it's like it's on my desk. Well, I was going to put it through Lightroom because everything's in Lightroom.
Yeah, you can do it in Lightroom too. That's great. But are you finding the share screen button down at the bottom?
I found the share.
Okay, so if you click that, it should give you some options at the top and then you have to click again. See, when we come through this on the other side, everybody's going to be so technologically proficient. It's going to be, I mean, I had to learn Darktable just for this. I was like,
Christy, you have to have Lightroom opened up first.
Yeah, she's still doing the share. You do have it open?
I have Lightroom in my box in the bottom.
But it has to be opened up onto your desktop.
Open it up on your screen because you're going to share your screen.
Okay, it's on my screen now.
Now okay. Go to screen share.
Yeah, the share screen button down at the bottom.
Green one.
Green one.
Okay.
And then you should see Lightroom is one of your options.
Oh, I do. Okay. So I go to the one where it's at.
Sarah, I'm sorry, but I have to leave now.
And you can hit if you want us to see the whole thing, you can hit your F key and show us the whole screen.
F key.
Just hit F on your
Hi,
keyboard.
Vicky.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye,
Sorry.
Vicky.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye, Vicky.
Thank you.
Say hi to Zora and your kids.
Adios.
Thank you. Bye.
I don't know why it's doing that, Christy. I think you'll have to exit full screen. It's doing something odd. It's giving you that double window. I've never seen that before.
Huh.
I've never seen that.
You see the Lightroom?
Yeah, I can see your Lightroom screen, but if you go into full, it should just give us the picture, but it's giving us the picture behind the frame of the Lightroom, which is really odd. I can't figure that out.
Yeah.
So we'll maybe just stick with it this way. You could try taking out the side windows. No, just leave it. Just leave
It's
it.
very interesting to see that.
Yeah, that was odd. Okay, cool. So walk us through this, Christy.
So I've decided to basically focus on this place, Brian Savage and Junk. And so this is what I've kind of narrowed it down to. I haven't got him down
to
the top 10 right now. So I'm looking through the stuff he's got in there versus just cars.
Oh, okay.
This is Brian's first car. This guy's like 77 years old. So he's been collecting junk his whole life. He loves antiques, so he still buys it right now.
I love that car. Cool.
And then there's like I took pictures of all the cars, you know, what they're called.
Yeah.
There's a variety of cars in there.
Oh, I love that.
So I've still got to tweak some of these, but I'm narrowing it down. And that was just sitting on top of a car.
That looks like it would be mouse ridden.
Oh, it's nice.
And they got piles of stuff in there just around.
Axles.
And just an old house sitting in there.
Where is this?
In like, how do you get out? We take 37. Where is it? I know you take 80 to Highway 12, Napa. It's in Napa.
Oh, okay.
And this is the wife. The owner, I asked if I could get a picture because it would have been perfect, but he said no. But she was willing to give me a picture.
Picture of him, you mean?
Yeah. But he just fit it the way he was dressed, everything. It was perfect, but he said no. So, but she was willing to do it.
Ooh, you got to persuade him.
So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Did you have to ask to get in there, or is it
Yeah,
open?
I called and asked them, and they said there's areas I couldn't, go into because I guess the city's kind of wants to get rid of them because, there's the Salt Lake, they test their water monthly.
Oh.
They're trying to push them out basically.
Mm.
So like these are some of the other junk in there that they've just got sitting around.
That's cool. Little Pepsi.
So this place may go.
Yeah, it's these people, the city wants them out.
Mm.
She showed me and just stuff sitting. Gumball machines.
Mm.
Is he selling this stuff?
Yeah, he sells this stuff. You can go in there and buy. My husband found this, which I thought I've never seen horns that way.
Wow.
Is that a car horn?
Yeah, that's the front of a car.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is a car.
Okay.
A car horn? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Man, you've got a lot to work with.
Yeah, I've got like trying to find. He's got the old washer.
Oh wow.
This is just stuff sitting around. He's got gas pumps.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's a lot to work with here.
Smart to come ahead of time. Yeah.
Oh, look at your kitty.
Okay.
Are your kitty or your dog?
Oh, this is the cat. I'm full up here with animals. I have 3 dogs and a cat.
Yeah, I have
But,
many animals too.
I had no idea you had a cat.
well, she kind of has me.
They do.
Those
They
of you
do.
in the portrait class, the cat was part of my. I did the assignment. I did the portrait, the Getty Portrait Challenge. I made a copy of a famous portrait with. The
This
cat.
is Colonel Sanders. It was actually on a building in Vallejo.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
They buy signs. This is from the Vallejo, she showed me she took me in her back area and showed me this kind of stuff.
Christy,
Uh-huh.
there is an original doggy diner head in Napa also.
Right.
Near 121 and 12, I believe it is.
Okay.
As you head towards Silverado Trail, towards 121, it would be off to the left, just about a half a block, if you want to explore that area.
Oh, okay.
So, what do you think, Kevin?
I mean, Christy, you've got a lot of great photos in here. Again, it's just editing it down. You know what I mean? I feel like that first photo we saw a while back of the porch. I think this sign is a little too literal to start with.
Uh-huh.
I think with this edit, you can kind of ease into it and provide like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then kind of you have a lot of really good images here. So just this kind of as the introduction, you're moving into this space and then you're seeing those details. What I really like on some of the images is how they're kind of overwhelming. Like there was one where there was a gas tank in the middle, and then there was all kinds of stuff piled up to the right and the left of it. Are there any animals on this site, like dogs?
They have actually 3 guard dogs. They're German Shepherds. They were caged up. They let them roam at night. I did take a picture of a dog, one of the German Shepherds in a cage.
I'd love to see that. I mean, that
junkyard dog.
Yeah, I mean that whole story you just said provides even more to chew on.
Yeah, because they had to call the cops one night because the guy tried to sneak in and the dogs had him up a tree. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there's so much
dogs
behind this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think again, like kind of like what Sarah was saying, there's a lot of notes here. It's just placing them together. I think this is a great introduction. Maybe even the road heading down to the facility where this is. I would start shooting there and just kind of, so you walk through the entire space.
Oh, okay. I'd have to take a trip back.
But I mean, you have so much to work with here. It's there. I love this shot with the hubcaps on the top and.
Well, this is one of my favorite shots. It just tells a big story.
Exactly. The alternator down on the right. I mean, if you look at the door, cash only, no checks accepted, no refunds. I mean, this guy means business. It's great. The bicycle on the side.
Well, that bicycle you see in this picture was his bicycle. That's his original bicycle as a kid.
Wow.
So he's got some of his original stuff sitting in here, and I took pictures of that.
Wow.
I mean, even for something like this, like if that woman's little chihuahua was kind of standing in the middle barking or something on the ground there.
They do.
You know, or if she was sitting on the steps.
But I didn't take a picture. Think about it.
I wish he would give you permission. I wish you could persuade him.
Yeah, that would really pull it all together.
Yeah.
You know, even if he's concerned about it, you know, he doesn't have to be facing camera. It could be, you know, the back of him or, you know, him turned away from the camera. You know, different ways you can play with it. These are great. I like that image from where you are. It's about 4 over to the left of the 2 cars stacked on top of each other.
Oh, I love that.
I like the precariousness of that image.
I just,
yeah,
just
that
terrible.
one reminds me of the bad actor family Sino, which used to be headquartered in the Pittsburgh area. They had a wrecking yard where they accumulated stuff through World War II, starting in the late 20s. And they had cars, often what are called today collector's cars, 4 deep. And they guarded them with large goats. You would not want to argue with these large goats.
Paul, you're goading me.
I am not. Visited it because I had a 1940 Fleetwood Cadillac and was thinking might want to get another parts car. And I saw things like 1929 Cadillac town cars halfway up a stack. And people actually took them out later when they finally decided they would sell stuff and restored such things as these just immense tasks, just unimaginably large tasks. Yeah. Anyway, back to that.
Great stuff, Christy. Yeah, Kevin.
Fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you're really, I'm excited that you narrowed it down to this because your original version was photos of car parts, and this is a story. This is a real documentary.
Yes, it is.
That's why
about a person. Yeah. Cool.
I was talking to the wife, and she was, you know, the guy's got lots of stories about everything, and
yeah.
So
you know, something maybe next time if you do go back, you could record them talking and telling some of these stories on your iPhone or your phone, and then you could kind of have that audio, even if it's just ambient of like the wind blowing and this metal creaking and going back and forth, and you could play that over a slideshow of some sort.
We're going to start adding more. We have a video class, Kevin, and we really want to do, we need to add a multimedia class at some point. So yeah.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah. It'll be a year or so, but
I hope it'll still be around.
just keep coming back, you guys. Keep taking classes. I really, really, really want you to come teach a class, Kevin. I got to figure out how to pull that off.
Come teach, Kevin.
I'd like that'd be fun. I enjoy teaching.
Yeah, you're natural.
See more of these
evil cat.
More
Sorry.
of these cars in the back too. I'd love to see more photos of these cars all stacked up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I have plenty of those. I know that.
How many?
Christy,
Yeah. Go ahead.
did you see a forklift there?
A forklift?
Well, they had. Let me find
I was
it.
gonna say, I just
One
don't
time.
trust Paul when he starts that way. It's like it's gonna go somewhere. Where are we going, Paul? Are we going
Well,
down?
I was curious.
Let's see.
Is the forklift still there?
They have. Let me find it. This is towards the end.
You may have figured out, Kevin, that sometimes when Paul gets started, we all go down a rabbit hole with him.
Oh yeah, Paul's just something else.
Where is it?
I like that image of the house with that yellow sign on the side too.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. The mobile gas sign.
The mobile gas.
Mobile gas. Yeah, we.
Yes.
I
Oh,
remember
that.
those.
Yeah, they collect signs.
I'm going to be back in just a moment if I can get it off the wall.
There's the dog. Number 9.
Okay.
9.
There's the dog I got.
Cool.
Where?
Oh, show us the dog. Bring him up. I want to see him.
See him. Oh, okay.
That's the dog.
That looks sad. That looks like a shelter.
Yeah.
No, you want him locked in there because people they'll bite your butt. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying it feels like a shelter.
Yeah.
Trying to find what Paul was looking for. I know I have a crane in here.
Yeah.
A crane or a forklift?
Think of fork.
Oh, the crane. Yeah.
It was.
Oh, there's so much here. I love the palette of this. It's really great. I'm glad you're leaving them in color.
Yeah, the palette is really nice. I like it for sure.
All right, Sarah. I agree.
Well, I also think that
I'm giving you a bad time.
No, I'd love Kevin's thoughts on this because there really is. I think that now that we can shoot in color and then decide later whether we want it in black and white, I think it gets trickier and trickier to decide. Like shooting in black and white used to be pragmatic as well as aesthetic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now it's purely an aesthetic choice. And I think you have to be very careful.
This is the thing they got.
Oh, that's awesome.
But they said I couldn't go back take pictures. I think because of the still you see on the bottom.
Nice.
You know.
Wow.
So that's.
It's evidently not working.
I don't have a clue. When the cars are empty, huh?
Christy, one thing, if you do go back, maybe bring them a couple prints so they can see exactly what you're doing.
Right.
And also bring them like a print of that portrait of the woman.
Right.
Say, I just want to give these to you, and to slowly build up some more trust, and hopefully they'll let you do some more portraits.
Well,
I'd like to see a vertical portrait of that woman with her engaging with the lens and looking directly at you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was my plan. I told her I was going to give her, put all the pictures on a CD or something and send them to her.
Do you you don't have a printer at home, or do you?
I do have a printer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prints are nice if it's a decent quality. Of course, we're all locked out of the digital lab now, Kevin. So, yeah, that's a really, really good idea. So, Kevin, what are your thoughts about making that decision to go to black and white in documentary in particular?
Yeah.
If you shot in color in digital, yeah.
It depends on the project. I mean, I would look at all of these in black and white, but I mean, the thing is you're dealing with all these different tones and colors. I mean, to kind of discard those, I don't know. All the varying colors of rust and
Rust.
Yeah, it kind of seems to me with black and white, like going to remove it, it can't be simply because it looks cool or even because it's nostalgic. It has to be because the color is leading us away from what you want us to look at. I think that's the best way for me to describe it. I've found it really difficult to articulate ever since we've gotten to this digital area, like what it is that I want people to be able to tell me about their choices of moving to black and white. But that may be it. I really want a good, really good reason that isn't, it looks cool. How's that? Yeah.
Yeah. I like number 67 too, that frame of the car.
Yeah.
That's kind
Yeah,
of
that
cool. I
was
like
just
that.
nothing left of it.
Oh, yeah.
That is so awesome.
That's cool.
I like these too because the palette is reduced and there's so much black and white and gray that the color is even more important because it's sort of like the color struggling to actually even exist in this environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really nice.
Cool. Very cool.
Nice
Well,
work.
You've got a lot to work with here. This is
You do,
great.
Christy.
You're in a good
girl.
spot.
That's what you want. You want these, yeah.
Sarah, you
Yes,
said that
Sarah.
you wanted to talk to me a little bit more. Is there any way that we could do that after we stop?
Yes, but give me, what time is it now? Because I was gonna.
12:30.
It's
I
12:32.
have to quit because I have a meeting at 1:30 that I have to prep for.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you email me, Terry, and let's set up a time to talk some more?
Yeah, because I have a 1 o'clock that I'm.
I've got meetings unfortunately for the rest of today, so it might have to be tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Just because if I need to do something more, I would like to
I
start
think
getting.
you're in a good place, but I definitely like to talk to you about it more, and I can even send you some thoughts by email too.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Wow, this was a long Zoom meeting.
It is a long one.
About as far as class time.
Yeah, this is. We came close to it, and every moment was really cool. Kevin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
much.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
It was really nice meeting all you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Kevin's doing
Thank
this
you,
for free,
Kevin.
by the way, because I don't have any way to pay him this semester. So say really thank you. He's
Thank
getting
you.
nothing except the fun of meeting us.
Well, you guys-
Okay, so Kevin, I'll talk to you later. I gotta run, and in the meeting,
If you-
I actually was just in this movie. Say what?
If you guys have any questions, just email me directly through my website.
Thank
Okay.
you, Kevin.
Good.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. We'll have him back someday in person. We will. Okay.
Alrighty.
everybody,
Guys,
Okay,
be safe.
bye-bye.
Guys,
Bye.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Great to see you.